Dr. Matthew Miller is the Executive Director for VA Suicide Prevention, where he leads a team dedicated to the implementation and reinforcement of evidence-based community and clinical interventions addressing suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention. He previously served as the director of the Veterans Crisis Line. Under his leadership, VCL became the world's largest and most efficient suicide crisis call center. He began his VA career as the chief of mental health at the Alida E. Lutz VA Medical Center in Saginaw, Michigan. Dr. Miller is also an Air Force veteran. Dr. Miller, what are the causes? Are they struggling for a reason, or is there a specific trigger like PTSD?
I think you're asking a question that everybody wants to know the answer to. In suicide prevention, there's rarely, if ever, one cause. Each situation is different, and any individual, myself included, could experience certain factors at one point in my life and not be at risk for suicide. While other times in my life, I may experience some factors and I would be a higher risk for suicide. So I think it's a matter of all of us better understanding broadly risk and protective factors when it comes to suicide and suicide prevention. Amidst that, there is one factor where across all the possible whys and causes, if you will, there's one aspect that's common to veterans, and that's the use of firearms. In 72% of veteran suicides, they involve firearms. So that's why you see us focusing on two things at one time. We're focused on better understanding the whys from a risk and protective perspective, and we're focused on the how. And with the how, 72% of the time, firearms, that means we have a significant focus on that area.
Dr. Matthew Miller is the Executive Director for VA Suicide Prevention. And how do we prevent it?
Well, I think it starts with looking at both the how and the why. And in many cases, it starts most immediately with the how. So firearms. If firearms are involved in 72% of veteran suicides, we know that the time between a veteran thinking in their head about suicide and engaging the act of suicide can be as short, as brief as 60 minutes. In that 60-minute window, if there is time and space between the veteran, the firearm, and the ammunition, that is life-saving. It buys time, which then allows us to talk through specifically with that veteran those broader risk and protective factors that need to come into play within their life and their situation.
We're talking with Dr. Matthew Miller, the Executive Director for VA Suicide Prevention. Doctor, how should family and friends listen, watch for signals, warning signs, and what should they do?
I think the first thing that friends, family, loved one need to know is that there's no fixed formula necessarily for knowing without a doubt that someone is thinking about suicide. When people typically think about suicide, the intensity tends to wax and wane. They may think about it for a little while, depending on situations, and then put it down. And it may then come back. So understand that it can kind of pop in and pop out. With that in mind, I think paying attention to some key signs can be helpful, although not fully predictive. So key signs: change in personality, change in behavior. Those are biggies typically, particularly if you see them more irritable, more likely to get angry or frustrated, pulling away from things, people, activities that they enjoy, and being a little more apathetic can be some key signs to pay attention to. We know on the protective side of things that connection to people, connection to a sense of purpose is extremely important. And if you see veterans pulling away from those forms of connection, that can be a sign to pay attention to. At those times, what we do encourage family members to open the door to is asking about suicide directly and talking directly about access to firearms and ways that family and friends and those who care about the veteran can help with introducing time and space between veteran firearm and ammunition when they're going through certain periods in their life.
Dr. Miller, I remember talking to a suicide prevention expert years ago, and this person said something profound. People that commit suicide are just like you and I. They have made a bad decision at the worst possible moment in their life. What do you think about that kind of perspective?
I think that I really like the aspect that focuses on they're just like you and I. And the fact of the matter is we all have risks and vulnerabilities to suicide. It's not specific to a certain mental health issue like depression or PTSD. It's not specific to a certain type of person, a certain race. It's not specific to a certain financial category. We all have risks. We all have protective factors. Veterans bring unique protective factors to the table, and it's important to focus across all veterans in doing what we can in our communities to lower risk factors and to reinforce or increase protective factors in our community and in individual veterans' lives as well.
I'd like to thank you, Dr. Miller, for taking your time discussing this topic, and I do appreciate everything the Veteran Administration is doing for our veterans. If you're a veteran in crisis or concerned about one, contact the Veteran Crisis Line to receive 24/7 confidential support. You don't have to be enrolled in VA benefits or health care to connect. To reach responders, dial 988, then press 1. That's 988, then press 1.